Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. Welcome to episode 85 of the Old Mage MTG podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a new topic today. It's an old topic, but it's a topic that's new to this show. We're going to talk about Deadguy Ale. Not the rogue brewery beer that is deep honey in color with a malty aroma and a rich, hearty flavor. Not the ale that is brewed in the style of a German Maibach using Rogue Brewery's proprietary Pac-Man yeast. No, I want to talk about Deadguy Ale, the mid-range Magic the Gathering deck. There's a lot to say about Deadguy Ale, the mid-range Magic the Gathering deck. Before we say those things, I'm going to do a little bit of shilling. If you'd like to support us for free, please like this video. Please subscribe to the Old Mage MTG channel if you haven't already. You can also find us on YouTube. Well, you might be, well, here, let's start that again. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. YouTube and Spotify, we have video. Apple Podcasts is for the audio-only listeners. I will say, if you're listening audio-only, this is a very visual show. I prefer the video. The video is the way to go. The Apple Podcasts file is for the people driving. If you're driving and you're listening to the Old Mage MTG podcast, I don't want you looking at the video. You got to keep your eyes focused on the road. YouTube and Spotify for non-drivers, Apple Podcasts for drivers.
Yeah, we do show a lot of pictures though. So yeah.
We do show a lot of pictures. You can also support us for free. That's the key. These are free things you can do by clicking our TCG affiliate link next time you place an order for collectible cardboard or cardboard accessories. You can find our TCG affiliate link in the description below. You get what you want for no extra cost. We get a little kickback. It helps cover the cost of making the pod. Now let's get right into segment one. Alex, I'm calling segment one Deadguy Ale, but why though?
But why though?
But why though? Alex, back in the day, you had Scrublands. I remember that. You even had an unlimited. You have an unlimited Scrubland too. You also bought some. So you bought some sinkholes and some strip mines to disrupt your opponent's mana base. You had some dark rituals. You would use those dark rituals to cast hypnotic specters. There were Sengir vampires in the mix. You may have had Jazam Djinns. I can't remember if you had Jazam Djinns.
No, never.
Okay.
I wish, no.
You dreamed
I didn't have
Jazam
sinkholes
Djinns.
back in the day either. All of my sinkholes are newly purchased because I wanted them so bad.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I never had a sinkhole. Think about it. When did I sinkhole anything ever of yours?
Did you have strip mines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We both had strip mines. I think we both had strip mines.
You did have discard spells.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You ran Mind Twist sometimes, but definitely
Mind Twist when it was legal, because it was sometimes banned or not legal on and off.
Sometimes.
Hymn to Turak, Hypnotic Specters, like you said.
I remember Hymn to Torax being big when that hit Fallen Empires. Fallen Empires was a dumpster fire, but Hymn to Torax was, I mean, it is a powerhouse. It's a beast card.
Yeah.
The discard would clear your opponent's hand of removal or counter magic. That would allow your creatures like Sengirs and Hypnotic Specters to run roughshod over your opponent. You'd add white to the mix. Why? We've talked about this many times. So you could run the best removal spells in the game in the form of Disenchant, Swords to Plowshares. This is a space you brewed in, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
What did you call these decks back in the day? I don't know. I think they were just black-white decks.
White. Just, black. Yeah.
We
black-white discard or black-white weenie kind of, but I think it was actually your idea that I should like move my deck into that direction at one point. I think you were like, I don't know about adding the white, but I think you were like, you should play, Order of the Ebon Hand, right? Like that's like the 2/1 pump knights.
Oh yeah.
And I had some black knights. You were like, you should go more in this like black weenie kind of direction, I think. And I like remade my deck in that way and played it for a while. I can't remember what it had been before, but it had been, a couple evolutions of like black deck like this, mid-range black deck with some, removal and discard and stuff.
When we got back into Magic, I would see decks like this. But people always talk to them, or people always refer to them as Deadguy Ale decks. That's the term that I kept seeing when we got back into Magic.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know what that meant.
I was like, what is going on? But why though? Why Deadguy Ale? I now have the answer. I asked Twitter to confirm for me, and at Jason Vorthos, aka Initiate of the Ebon Hand, I did that right. I said Ebon this time, Ebon Hand, aka host of the YouTube channel Terrain Basique, basic land in French, I think.
Yep.
He confirmed it. I did find the answer. To find the answer, to find the original Deadguy Ale deck, the reason why people now call these black-white mid-range decks Deadguy Ale, I had to go all the way back to 2005. Alex, years after you offloaded your Mox Jet, your Mox Pearl, your Black Lotus, after you sold your Jazam Gins, you didn't actually do that. I thought you had them, but you didn't do that.
No, never had it.
Someone brought a black-white deck to Grand Prix Philadelphia in 2005. That deck was called number 2, Rogue Deadguy Ale, a homebrew. That someone was Chris Pikula. And this is where we're going to start our journey through Deadguy Ale.
Oh, okay.
This is the Pulp Fiction of Magic the Gathering podcast episodes on Deadguy Ale. We're starting in the middle with this 2005 black-white mid-range deck. Next episode, we might go to early versions of black-white mid-range before they were called Deadguy Ale. Then we might go to like current versions. Don't know, but right now we're starting in the middle. This is the deck, like I said, that he brought with him to Grand Prix Philadelphia in 2005. I want to start going over it, starting with the creatures. There are 11 creatures in this deck. There's 4 Hypnotic Specters. These are standard. These were always standard.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 Nantuko Shades, which is a rare printed in Torment, a card we didn't used to play with, but when we saw it, this is awesome.
We didn't have it, yeah, but
we didn't have it.
When I learned about this, I immediately looked at it and was like, "Oh, this is a great little like pump night kind of card." And I haven't really been wanting to play this sort of deck since it was kind of like the last thing I had been playing when we quit. I've been looking at different things in black or some, green and some other colors, but as soon as I saw Nantuko Shade, I was like, I would have slotted this card into my old deck.
This is the card when I look at decks from this era, Deadguy Ale decks from this era, it's the card and compare them to old school. This is the card that's like slotted in the spot that is usually occupied by the Jazam Jin or used to be occupied by the Jazam Zen. Because it can get, it can get big and get powerful.
Yeah.
When Chris Pikula was working on this deck originally, this spot was first occupied by the Scudda, Phyrexian Scudda.
Oh, okay. Another card that I was pretty stoked to learn about.
And when we saw that, we were like, oh, a new Jazam Jin.
Yeah.
Which is apparently a feeling that a lot of people had when they first saw that card. Oh, a new Jazam's in, and they play it and they stop playing it. That's what Pikula did. He saw it, he put it in this deck, and then he swapped it out for the Nantuko Shades. And then we have a card that we were not familiar with at all. We'd never played. Dark Confidant.
Can you make that be its original?
This is.
Order?
This is the original, actually.
What is that?
This is a card that was first printed in Ravnica, City of Guilds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That is the first set in the Ravnica block. So Dark Confidant is 1 colorless, 1 black, creature human wizard, 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. It has a rating of 4.452 on Gatherer. Current market price in this printing of $12.02. So this is a beautiful card.
Yeah.
The key with running this card in this deck is the mana curve in the deck is very low. It tops out, I believe, at 3 mana.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw that card, I'm like, yeah, great card for a low mana deck.
3 mana. So
you're getting pulling out 5 casting cost things with it.
Yeah. You're getting a new card every turn, and you're paying max 3 life for the card, and you're probably not paying. I mean, you're not doing that consistently. Sometimes you're paying no life because you're getting an extra land. Sometimes you're paying 1 life because you're pulling a duress, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. For lands, it'll be free.
Yeah, free.
I wasn't even thinking. Wow, that's great. Yeah, it reminds me of Phyrexian Arena, but with like, a higher damage downside and also a low, like a no damage upside.
And it can do damage itself. You can attack
Yeah,
with it
and
too.
it's yeah.
So just don't play this card with Colossus of Sardia and Lord of the Pit, and you're cool. If you run it intelligently, run it on low mana curve deck, it's fantastic. This is also a Magic Invitational card. It features the face of Magic the Gathering Hall of Famer Bob
Oh,
Maher Jr. I've heard his name pronounced Bob Maher, but it's spelled Maher. So I'm going to go with Bob Maher, but I could be wrong. That's Bob Maher in the artwork. I really love these old invitational cards where they let somebody design their own card and put their face in the artwork.
oh yeah, yeah. That's I mean, isn't that everyone's dream to like, in your hobby be memorialized within it and like have something named after you and like.
They did reprint this card, including fairly recently. They reprinted a Ravnica Remastered. And it's in the old frame style with some pretty
Oh yeah.
badass artwork.
I like that much more.
Yeah. So those are the creatures. Four Dark Confidant, four Hypnotic Specters, three Nantuko Shade. You got card draw, you got discard, and you got a potential big beater in this lineup.
For quick, for free. Yeah. Or not for free, but for cheap, quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Onto the sorceries. You're loaded up with discard here in the sorceries too. You have 4 duress.
Mm-hmm.
Always safer to play a hippie if you have a duress in your opening hand. Get rid of their removal, then you play your hippie. Two. I wrote 2 Hymn to Torak. 4 Hymn to Torak. If you're in a format where you can play Hymn to Torak and you're playing black, then you better be playing Hymn to Torak. What is wrong with you if you're not playing Hymn to Torak?
Yeah, it's like the old school like duress or cabal therapy.
And then you run in 2 Gerard's Verdict.
Also,
Something
cool card.
very cool card. Something I love about him and Gerard's Verdict in this deck. This is a deck with a lot of land destruction. When you have a deck with this much land destruction, stripping some of the lands from their hand on turn 2 it could just cripple them for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And then you have 4 Sinkholes, 4 Vindicates. He has no swords here in the main board. He runs Vindicates in place of swords. I often wonder if I should run this card over swords, because in many cases it turns out to be a 3-mana Sword to Plowshares, which is bad. But it can also be a 3-mana Desert Twister, and that's very good. So I guess, if I was brewing in this space, I would pretty much do what he did. He has Vindicate in the main board and swords in the sideboard. And I guess sometimes you could do a little swap there if you needed to, if they're
Or just add them in as
or just add them in.
you need extra removal for certain decks. Yeah.
It could always just be extra. Yeah. I do really like Vindicate though in a deck here where you have some wastelands, you have sinkholes, you have Vindicate, you have discard that potentially strip their lands.
I don't understand. This deck is so weird to me with like it has a card that's not pre-modern legal anymore now, but it's playing Sinkhole too. Like, is Sinkhole only legal in this deck because it had been reprinted by this point? Like after the pre-modern cutoff?
I don't know when Sinkhole had been reprinted, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that.
Because I know Sinkhole's been reprinted, but just not so that it's pre-modern legal.
Or instead of getting to it later, I'll just say right now. He first built this deck at a particular time in Magic's the Gathering's history. Here in 2005 was the beginning of the legacy format. So prior to this, there was Type 1.5.
Oh, okay, they're still calling it by
Type 1 and Type 2. And right before this tournament, they created the legacy format. They essentially rolled over Type 1.5 into legacy. They made some few changes. And GP Philadelphia was the very first legacy Grand Prix. So this presented players with a new pool of cards to brew with, cards that weren't previously always all available in legal necessarily in the same format. At the same time, Legacy was created, Dark Confidant was just printed. Dark Confidant was 2005.
Okay.
So basically, he saw Dark Confidant. He really liked the card. And he saw that it would be legal in a new Legacy format where he could play many of his other favorite cards, including Hypnotic Spectre, Hymn to Torak, Duress, Sinkhole, Wasteland, Dark Ritual. So it took many of his favorite Type 1 or Type 1.5 staples and added a card draw engine to them. And that was, I think, really the inspiration for him to build this deck. So yeah, you look at this mix of cards and you're like, this is a strange mix of cards. I don't remember ever playing in a time where it would have been available. This mix of cards wasn't available prior to 2005. It is a mix of old school and then at the time, brand new tech. So anyways, what was I saying? Vindicate. A bad Swords of Plowshares, but also a fantastic Desert Twister. And in this deck where you have all this land removal, I like to use Vindicate to blow up lands. I think that's what I would use it for most of the time.
Oh, really?
Also pesky enchantments.
Yeah, I feel like it's just sort of like your cleanup. It's your, you got the sinkholes, you're making them discard, so they're already starved for land and maybe missing some of their really good spells. And then you use the Vindicate either, yeah, if you need to for land or for, enchantments, creatures, artifacts. That are a problem. It's a good way to get rid of like a winter orb or something that might get down quick.
Yeah. Pesky enchantments, pesky artifacts. Instants, artifacts, and enchantments. The one instant is Dark Ritual. I mean, you run Dark Ritual, so you could play turn first hippie, or better yet, first turn first hippie, or better yet, turn one Duress plus Nantuko Shade. I like how that sounds.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You could do that on turn one, save the hippie for turn two, or you could just go straight at like Duress and Hymn to Torak, just like annihilate their opening hand.
That could happen. I also like the idea of Dark Ritual, Duress, Dark Confidant. You strip something from their hand, and you got your card and a creature
now. Yeah. So with this mana curve and Dark Rituals, you just have all kinds of options. That's what I like about Black and Dark Ritual. You just get all these cool early game, 2-card in one turn combinations you can do.
Mm-hmm. And the bad thing about Ritual is you're always ritualing out a hippie, and then the hippie gets Swords to Plowshared. And you're like,
yeah. Damn. And now you're down 2 cards, yeah.
But I love combining it with a Duress plus a 2 casting cost creature.
Yeah.
Love that.
Because then you get rid of that removal or that counter or whatever.
The one artifact is a Curse Scroll. He runs 2 copies of Curse Scroll. This is just a direct damage powerhouse. It can double as creature removal and damage to the face. I haven't played Curse Scroll enough. I gotta run some Curse Scroll heavy decks. I'm in the mood to play some Curse Scroll. Never really played it often. And then the one enchantment is Engineered Plague. He runs 2 copies of Engineered Plague in the main board. This is to deal with the absolute menace that is the Goblin deck. It's an absolute menace these days in Premodern. It was an absolute menace back in 2005. It's probably an absolute menace in I don't know how many different time periods. It wasn't an absolute menace back in like 94, 95 when we played because there just weren't many. But when you start to get into the pre-modern card pool and you have like really powerful goblins printed in like Onslaught and Apocalypse, it's like.
But it's always been a thing. And like, when we played like way back, people just combined it with, like Red Heat. You'd be playing like a burn deck that was also a goblin deck.
Yeah, they weren't quite as goblin heavy.
Yeah.
You would run your mom's goblins, your goblins of the Flarg.
I think you said my mom's goblins.
No, your mom's goblins. What was I saying? Mons, goblins, raiders. I was gonna say something and I decided not to say. So, and then I flustered myself. Engineer Plague. Main board because goblins is a menace. That's why. The lands.
But also it has great, I don't have to say it, but it has great effect outside of that too. You can destroy a bunch of mana elves with it or something,
Elves. you can name wizards.
Birds of Paradise, you could just like get rid of their birds or their, whatever they're playing.
Yeah. But I will say goblins is the reason you main board it.
Yeah. Point taken.
Lands, 4 scrub lands. He runs a tainted field. I like seeing a tainted field in there. 10 swamp. 4 bloodstained stained mire. I was confused by this because I was like, why would you run the fetch lands? But then I was like, oh, I was confused because it's a fetch land that searches for the swamp and the mountain. And I'm like, why do you choose this one? And I thought about it for like 30 seconds. The answer is you search for the swamp that is your scrub land. You don't have any mountains in the deck, but you run Bloodstained Mire because the fetch land that fetched either a swamp or a plains wasn't printed yet at this point. That's why, I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what fetch land fetches for a swamp or plains. I don't know what it's called, but it was in the set where they first printed the enemy fetch lands.
Okay.
I can't remember what set that was, but it was a new frame set and it was post 2005.
Okay. Yeah.
So he ran the Bloodstained Mire.
But yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
The black red one because the black white one wasn't printed yet. And he uses it.
And even the scrubland aside, late game, it's still just a way to, grab a mountain or grab another swamp out of your deck and thin your deck.
Yeah. Not grab a mountain, Alex. Not grab a mountain.
Not a mountain, a swamp.
Yeah. And then 4 wasteland because you got to deny that mana.
Yeah. And Tainted Field is cool because since you have scrublands, those count as swamps, right? So the Tainted Field works more often.
Yeah, it works nice. It works nicely with the combination of the scrub and the fetch land to get the scrub.
Yeah.
The sideboard. The sideboard has some cards that are completely new to me. Maybe I've seen this before and forgot about it already. But Dark Blast. 2 copies of Dark Blast in the sideboard. It's quite good. It's a nice way to remove many early game 1/1s for just 1 mana. It's 1 black instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. It has Dredge 3, so you could always get it back if needed. Dredge did not exist when we were doing most of our playing. I've never played with a card with Dredge. I know we've talked about it before. It is a keyword that was first printed in the Ravnica block. It is a recursion mechanic. If a card has Dredge and that card is in the graveyard, the owner of that card can return the card with Dredge to their hand by choosing to skip their draw phase and mill that number of cards. So if you play Dark Blast to kill a 1/1 or to kill a Birds of Paradise or something, it's in your graveyard. Later, you can then choose to mill 3 cards in place of your draw that turn, and then you bring Dark Blast back from the graveyard.
Yeah, and I don't think it even has to be your draw of the turn because the text here that I'm looking at says if you would draw a card, you may mill 3 cards instead. So anytime you're supposed to draw a card, you can opt to do it.
Okay. More Engineer Plague. If you're running against dominant goblins, if you're running into a dominant goblin stack, holy shit!
Or maybe
you want to bring in 4. Phyrexian Negator. This is an Urza's Destiny rare. 2 colorless, 1 black, 5/5 creature horror trample. Whenever Phyrexian Negator is dealt damage, sacrifice a permanent for each 1 damage dealt to it. I'll say this card always scares me. I don't really know when to play it.
I want to try it, but I've been afraid to.
Yeah. You don't play it if your opponent has direct damage. You don't play it.
Sorry, keep going.
You do play it, I think, against combo decks. If you're running against an opponent that just has like some crazy combo deck that they're trying to assemble.
And then, okay.
Okay, that's great.
Removal.
Yeah, you can maybe assemble your combo in 3 turns. I'm Dark Ritualing out a turn 1 Phyrexian Negator, and it's coming right at you, and you don't have any way to do damage to it. So maybe you bring it in during against combo decks, stuff like that.
I just thought about, since it's in this deck in the combination of black white, it would be great with Mother of Runes because now you can give the Phyrexian Negator protection and it won't take damage. Uh, of course, that has the problem of now it slows down your Phyrexian Negator a little bit because you have to get that Mother of Runes out and able to be tapped in order to
Mhm.
give it protection. So, but maybe after you get it down and it's been down for a turn or two, now you can give it protection.
It's actually not a bad idea. Maybe even like sneak this into an alternative type of black-white deck where you run like those white clerics that move
Yeah,
damage all around, stuff like
right.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see a lot of that. Maybe people have done it. I just haven't come across it yet. Not bad. The next sideboard card, a card that I had never seen. I had heard people talk about it. I've heard this name, hadn't seen the card. It is Pithing Needle, first printed in the Saviors of Kamigawa set. I don't know exactly in this meta what this card was sideboarded in for typically, but it has an effect that would be useful against something in every meta. As Pithing, it's one colorless artifact. As Pithing Needle comes into play, name a card. Activated abilities of the named card can't be played unless they're mana abilities. Pith, by the way, means to pierce or sever the spinal cord
Excellent.
so as to kill or immobilize.
I was going to
And
make a joke about how pithing needle would be Mike Tyson's catheter.
that's a decent one, Alex. That's not too bad. I I was unfamiliar with this term, pithing, but
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't
I
know
now
that.
want to use it as a threat. Like when people are starting to shit with
I'm
me,
gonna pith you.
I'm gonna pith the fuck out of you. Shut your goddamn mouth. You want pith? I'm gonna pith you. I'm gonna pith your entire family. They won't know what I'm saying, but I'll know what I'm saying.
They'll know that it's mean.
They'll know that it's not something they want done to them. Uh, yeah, there's a whole Wikipedia page on pithing and commercial slaughter and disease control in science. You can pith to immobilize a biological specimen.
Oh wow.
Pith. Do you pith lobsters when you cook a lobster?
Okay.
You use a knife instead of a needle. Anyways, that's Pithing Needle. It's a very good card.
That card's awesome. It's so cheap and it lets you deal with all sorts of unusual
All
situations. Like
sorts
it's
of things.
what a great sideboard card.
Rating of 4.242 on Gather. Current market price of $5.75. I looked that up. I was like, how expensive are these? Not that bad. The rest of the sideboard are Swords to Plowshares and Withered Wretch. You know, Swords to Plowshares if they have more creatures you need to deal with. Withered Wretch if they're doing graveyard shenanigans. Sometimes maybe you just want another body to bring in too, so it's good to bring in another creature.
Mhm.
So very cool deck. That's the deck.
Yeah, I
That's
like it.
Deadguy Ale 2005. Chris Pikula brought this to GP Philadelphia. This continues the trend of competitive decks with very low mana curves. We've been seeing this over the course of us digging into competitive decks on this podcast. Lots of high performing decks with low mana curves where all the spells cost 3 or less. Lower than I typically go when I'm building my casual decks, but they're very particular about that 4 slot. And a lot of metas and a lot of times in Magic the Gathering, if you're going to play a card that costs 4 mana, better win the game.
Mhm.
Is there anything you were going to say, Alex?
Just that, yeah, just that I like it. I think it's going to be, just looking at it makes it seem like it's going to be very hard to withstand this deck early game. Like
Yeah.
with the discard and the land destruction and the fast creatures, it just seems like, it's going to be easy for them to really shut you down and deny you of stuff. So,
It came in second place at GP Philadelphia
oh, against
2005.
goblins. Huh.
Goblins came in first. Deadguy Ale second. Beat another Goblins deck piloted by Tom Smart. Third and fourth place, we have Goblins Red White Rift. Fifth through eighth place, we have Salvage Game, Thresh Grow, Threshold, and Threshold. I don't know what Salvage Game is. Maybe that's another deck we can get into.
Yeah, maybe we'll look into these. What's Red White Rift?
Red White Rift is it's a deck. I don't know much about these decks, but I know the basics.
There's a
There's a card
Jadum Tome
called
in it.
there's a card called Lightning Rift. This is a pre-modern card from Onslaught. It's an enchantment, one colorless, one red. Whenever a player cycles a card, you may play one colorless.
Ah,
If you do, Lightning Rift deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and then you can imagine the rest of the deck is built largely of some of the best cycling cards in the meta.
okay.
Not Abeyance. Abeyance does not cycle, but Decree of Justice cycles. Akrama's Vengeance cycles. Slice and Dice cycles. So lots of cyclers.
Okay.
Dragon cycles. Some cycling lands. Red, white, good stuff. Plus the best cyclers you can find in Lightning Rift to deal damage when you cycle. So I mentioned earlier, I was going to talk about this now, but I already mentioned it earlier, how this deck developed. It was the beginning of the Legacy format. Pikula saw Dark Confident. He wanted to start brewing something a little bit new with a lot of his favorite old cards, like Hypnotic Spectre, Hypnotorac, Duress, blah, blah, blah. He wrote an article about this tournament. It's an article that was published in Star City Games, November 18th, 2005, Suicidal Tendencies, Grand Prix Philadelphia, 2nd, by Chris Pikula. He talked a little bit about how the deck developed, and he did some play-by-play of some of the matches. Some things to note from his play-by-play. One, he signed Meddling Mages for his round 4 opponent earlier in the day, and for different kids in between matches. Chris Pikula is the Meddling Mage, Alex. Dark Confident, I said that was a invitational card that a player got to design and get his face on. Apparently the same thing happened for Chris Pikula. He won the 2000 Magic Invitational, and he designed a Meddling Mage. That's his face on the Meddling Mage.
Huh.
So that'd be weird if you were the Meddling Mage and like people you were playing were like, hey, can you sign my card?
I'd be like, $10.
I would
Just
be like,
kidding.
Or maybe we'll see how the game goes,
Yeah.
maybe. See how these matches go. Another thing, what else did I want to say? Oh, in round 10. This comes later in this article. He did a little bit of play-by-play from a lot of his matches, the different rounds, round 3, round 4. A little bit about who he played against, what they were playing, how the games went. In round 10, he faced Tom Smart on Goblins. This was the Goblin deck that came in 3rd after Deadguy Ale and the other Goblins deck. And when I read this, I thought how this is my greatest fear. When it comes to playing cards like Dark Blast or any card with the dredge mechanic. I've never played a card with the dredge mechanic. Doesn't exist in any of the sets I've played with so far. But what happened to the Meddling Mage here in round 10 is precisely what I fear from dredge. He says right here. Twice, when I dredged Dark Blast, the card I was going to draw was Engineered Plague. So here he's playing goblins. His opponent plays a goblin that he wants to get rid of. He's like, I'm going to dredge Dark Blast so I can blast that goblin off the board. And what do you mill? You mill Engineered Plague. That's the one that would have taken care of many, many goblins. That's the one card. That's the last card you want to lose in this matchup when you're dredging to kill one goblin. You don't want to lose the Engineered Plague, the enchantment that can take care of many goblins. Eventually, I was at 3 with nothing in my hand, and he had out Pile Driver and 2 Ringleaders. I tried to get lucky and drew Swords to Plowshares. I plowed the Pile Driver, and he attacked me down to 1. My next draw was the last Engineered Plague in my deck. Right after that, I drew Nantuko Shade and ended the game in 1 turn. How lucky. So you board in Dark Blast because it's excellent for picking off goblins, but then you end up dredging the card that can get you closest to winning the game. Luckily, he pulled his last one.
Yeah, the Dark Blast thing, it's risky. I feel like I kind of only want to be putting it into a deck that was doing other graveyard stuff too. So if the cards I milled, you know what I mean? I'd be like stocking my graveyard with those mill cards.
It's less risky under those situations, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to briefly go through some of the top 8 gameplay. I'm not going to talk about all of the matches. Let's just look at the top 8 gameplay. In the quarterfinals, he faced Lamb Fan on Threshold. This is Lamb Fan's Threshold deck. You got some Trop Islands, some Windswept Heaths, some Tundras, some forests, some islands, some plains, some flooded strands. Creatures. Meddling Mage. Chris Pikula is in his opponent's deck again. 2 Mystic Enforcers, 4 Nimble Mongoose, 4 Werebear. And then you have...
If he didn't want to face Meddling Mage all the time, he shouldn't have made it so good, right?
That is true. It's his own damn fault.
Yeah.
Instants and sorceries, you have a series of blue card draw spells like Accumulated Knowledge, Brainstorm, and then you have counters. Counter, spell, daze, Force of Will. This is a format where Force of Will is legal. Swords to Plowshares. I don't know. Serum
Visions.
I don't know. Let's look that. Okay, it's
I remember Predict, but I can't remember exactly what it does.
Serum Visions is 1 blue, sorcery, draw card, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on top in any order. Okay.
That's cool. I like that.
Library sorting. Predict might be something very similar. 1 colorless, 1 blue, instant, name a card, then put the top card of target player's library into his or her graveyard. If that card is the named card, you draw 2 cards, otherwise you draw a card. Okay, it's nothing at all similar to Serum Visions. Anyways, that is Lamb Fan's Threshold deck. Mystic Enforcer was Pikula's greatest fear in this match. He can't really get rid of it with anything other than Swords to Plowshares, and Swords to Plowshares is in his sideboard. He only has 2, and if the Swords to Plowshares is countered, he's in big trouble. Because Mystic Enforcer is 2 colorless, 1 green, 1 white, 3/3 protection from black. When you have Threshold, it gets +3/+3 and has flying. So you're playing Deadguy Ale, only 2 STPs. You potentially have a 6/6 pro black flyer coming at you.
Yeah, the protection from black thing is a good argument to have some Swords to Plowshares and some Vindicates, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say
the right
even
card Vindicate.
Yeah, even Vindicate can't get rid of this because it has black in the casting cost. So he's reliant totally upon his 2 sideboard Swords to Plowshares. Game 1 against Lamb Fan on Threshold. Pikula picked off lands with Wasteland and snagged lands and counters with discard spells. That's exactly what you want to happen early stages of a Deadguy Ale match. Fam countered creatures and cast draw spells. Both decks were doing what they do until Fam dropped the Mystic Enforcer.
Dun, dun, dun.
Pikula scooped. He's got no STPs. That was it. The Enforcer hits the board. He's like, I'm out. I'm going to regroup. Game 2, he brings in some Swords of Plowshares, of course. Game 2, Fam was mana screwed. After a few turns, Pikula was dealing damage with a Curse Scroll, dropped the Nantuko Shade. Fam still only had 1 forest out. He scooped. If you're mana screwed against a land destruction deck, you're in trouble. Just give up. That's what Fam did. Game 3, Fam played an early Werebear, which ate an STP. Pikula paid a Gerard's Verdict and gained 6 life because Fam chose to discard 2 lands. Very risky against a deck with as much land destruction as Deadguy Ale. That turned out to be a huge mistake. On turn 3, Pikula blew up 2 tropical islands and then picked apart his hand with a Hypnotic Spectre and a Gerard's Verdict. Fam could never get going. I had no land side Lamb, who ironically had kept a land-heavy hand. He has so much land destruction, I needed to keep it. It was a good hand. I really needed that werebear. Poor fam. So that's how the quarterfinals went. Pikula was victorious 2-1, despite the presence of the Mystic Enforcer.
Yeah.
In the semifinals, Pikula faced Pasquale Ruggiero on Red-White Rift, which runs the format's best cycling cards plus Lightning Rift to deal damage when you cycle. Game 1, Pikula's land destruction removed the mountains from the battlefield, and he ran his opponent over with an Intugo Shade before he could do anything. The guy had no mountains. He blew up. He blew up his one mountain. Couldn't do anything. Game 2, Pasquale was able to control the game with STPs and Humility. This is a very good card against Deadguy Ale. And against a lot of things, really. But if you're playing against Deadguy Ale, you get a Humility on the board. Your Hypnotic Specters.
Neuters the hippies, neuters the shade.
Nothing. You can't pump the shade. Your Spectre doesn't fly. It doesn't cause your opponent to discard if it does damage. Your Dark Confident doesn't draw you cards.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it probably, it loses its ability as soon as you cast it, so it doesn't happen, right? I'm guessing.
What'd you say? I zoned out for a second.
Like I'm assuming that that's the way it works with the Dark Confidant, is that the humility would like strip that ability off it before it ever happens, like when you cast it.
Yes. It loses the ability to draw you cards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Pasquale was able to control the game long enough with Sword to Plowshares and Humility to build his mana base by cycling Eternal Dragon. So he would just kept the Deadguy Ale creatures under control. He would use the plane cycling ability use the plane cycling ability of Eternal Dragon to go fetch planes, build up his mana base. He finally built up enough land to hardcast Eternal Dragon for 7. It's a 5/5 flyer. Pikula scooped. There was nothing to do after that point.
Wow.
In game 3, it was a different story. Pikula was able to successfully strip his opponent's hand with Duress, him, and Hippies, while also getting a Dark Confident to stay in play. That's everything that a Deadguy Ale player wants to happen. The card advantage was too strong to overcome. Dark Confident fed him cards and swung in to deal the final points of damage. Pikula was victorious, 2-1. And then in the finals, he faced Jonathan Sohn, or Jonathan Sone, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Again on goblins. This goblin deck, it's not that different from the goblin decks we've seen so far in Premodern, as we've gotten into Premodern.
Yeah, I'm recognizing all of these.
4 Rishodon ports, which they play a lot. They play the 8 fetch lands that you can play in Premodern in a goblin deck. 4 Bloodstained Mire, 4 Wooded Foothills. In creatures, you got your 4 Gem Palm Incinerators, your 4 Goblin Lackeys, your 4 Goblin Matrons, your 4 Goblin Pile Drivers, your 4 Goblin Ringleaders, your 1 Goblin Sharpshooter, 1 Goblin Tinkerer, 4 Goblin War Chiefs, 4 Mog Fanatics, 3 Siege Gang Commanders, Skirk Prospector. That's pretty much a standard Premodern Goblins lineup.
The deck is like all lands and creatures. There's only 4 cards that are a spell.
There are some cards here that were new to me totally, though. I had never seen for either vial. No, either vial. We've gone over multiple times on the podcast how to pronounce this word. It is either. Correct, Alex?
No, because maybe, but I always forget.
I believe it's either. Again, a card that I had heard of, so I knew it was good, but I didn't know what it did.
Yes.
Again, a 1 casting cost artifact. We're seeing
What are they thinking with all these 1 casting cost
Pithing
artifacts?
Needle, you're just asking to get a card banned at some point if you're printing a super powerful 1 casting cost artifact. Anyways, it's 1 colorless. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on either vial. Tap. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on either vial from your hand into play.
Oh, that's really good against land destruction.
It's really good against land destruction. And it's just brutal in general against a deck like Goblins, where you have cards like uh, Ringleader that give you Goblin advantage, give you card
Mhm.
advantage in the form of extra goblins. You play the Ringleader, you reveal the top 4 cards. Several of them are goblins. They go into your hand. You don't even have to have the mana to cast more than one of them that turn. You could just tap the Ether Vial to play them
Mm.
right when you draw
Oh
them.
yeah,
It's
so
great.
yeah, it helps you get those little ones out fast, but it also grows and helps you get the big ones out later. Yeah.
Yeah. So 4 Ether Vial are here right in the main deck. Sideboard, we got Pithing Needle, which we just learned about. Different art. Oh, that's a brutal pithing right there. And another card I'd never seen. Patron of the Aki. Akai. Don't even know how to pronounce it. Don't know what set this is from. This is a wild card.
Champions of Kamigawa.
Did you
Probably.
look it up?
No, I'm just assuming.
Okay. Might be.
Oh, but no, you have a couple of them right then all around the same time too. So it could be Betrayer. Oh, you know what? I see. The Shoryuken symbol is
Mm-hmm.
Betrayers of Kamigawa.
Betrayers of Kamigawa. Okay. This card is 4 colors, 2 red, legendary creature spirit, 5/5. It has a ability I've never seen before called Goblin Offering. You may cast this card anytime you could cast an instant by sacrificing a goblin and paying the difference in mana costs between this and the sacrificed goblin.
Okay.
Whenever Patron of Akai attacks, creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. This is a crazy card.
Mm-hmm.
It's 6 casting costs, but you can sack a goblin and use all of the mana that's required to cast that goblin to feed into this casting cost and cast this quite easily.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then you have a 5/5 that gives all of your attackers
I like it with is
+2/+0.
it the pile driver who's
Yes.
forecasting cost?
Power Driver's 2 casting cost.
Which one am I, which one
But
did we just look at? Ringleader?
Power Driver's 2 casting cost, but that also gets +2/+0 for every other goblin attacking. So that's maybe you were
I'm
thinking
looking for
plus
the
two
one
plus
that
zero.
brings the other goblins into play. Is that
Got
Ringleader?
well,
Yeah.
no, puts the goblins into your hand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Siege Gang Commander also brings goblins into play. But you were
Okay,
thinking of
cool.
this, it puts it
Well,
into
yeah,
your
but
hand.
either way, either one of them. What's Siege Gang's casting cost?
Well, Siege Gang is
Big?
5, so you could sacrifice the Siege Gang. It
Yeah.
brings tokens into play, so they don't have a casting cost.
Yeah, I mean, this works too, but I was thinking
It
about the
does.
other one because you cast it and it does its thing where it pulls goblins into your hand for you. Okay. And it has haste, so you get to use it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can sacrifice it to give you 4 mana to help you cast the other guy,
Patron. The patron.
patron. Yeah.
Yeah, the patron's brutal. Uh, I'm unsure. I'll probably figure this out over time. I'm unsure why it's a sideboard card.
Oh,
It's obviously a good card. When do you decide that you want to remove a goblin and sideboard in the patron? Not sure. No,
yeah, good question.
I can't think of like any one matchup where this is like something you would obviously want to bring in from the sideboard. I could see if you just it's just a great card. So if you just ran it main board, I wouldn't be like, why are
Yeah.
you running the main board? I wouldn't question it. I would be like, okay, I understand 1 or 2 patrons in there.
Maybe it has something to do with the fact that you can play it as an instant.
I'm not sure,
Like there
but
might be some
maybe,
decks where you want to like pull out a 5/5 blocker, like real quick.
maybe. Yeah, maybe there were some hasty boys or something in this meta that were a pain in the ass that you would want to flash out a 5/5
Yeah.
for. Not sure.
Other than that, yeah, I agree with you. It seems like just good in general, and you could put it in the main deck.
But anyways, this is Jonathan Sohn's Goblins deck. When he sat down to face this deck, the question was, can he beat goblins without drawing Engineered Plague? Game 1, they traded creatures, Mog Fanatics for Shades. Pikula picked off more goblins with discard, and with the Cursed Scroll, he got down the Cursed Scroll. He's blowing up goblins with the Cursed Scroll.
Hmm.
When Goblin Ringleader hit the battlefield, this is the card that I feel like always puts me over the hump when I'm playing goblins. You get a good ringleader draw. It's amazing. When Jonathan got the ringleader to hit the battlefield, the goblin swarm overwhelmed Pikula. Goblins were up 1-0. Game 2. A turn 1 lackey was answered by a dark blast and a cursed scroll. This time Pikula was able to handle the horde with his removal and his discard. With a withered wretch, hypnotic specter, and cursed scroll on the battlefield, and a graveyard full of goblins, the goblin player scooped.
Okay, so he sideboarded in Withered Wretch after the first match.
He did, yeah.
Hmm.
Probably because you're facing a horde of creatures, 34 creatures.
Just needed more creatures.
Just get another body on the board. I don't know what he
Okay.
took out, but get more bodies on the board. I don't know what you take out exactly. I'd have to think about it for a little while. Do you take out removal? I don't know. That's the removal you can't use to remove a goblin. Not sure. But the question, can Deadguy beat goblins without pulling an engineered plague? Yes, he did it. Game 2. They were tied 1-1. Game 3. Goblin player plays a first turn lackey that was answered with a dark ritual engineered plague.
Oh,
Is there any better response to a first turn lackey?
no.
That's the right answer. Everything went downhill for Deadguy from there, though. Pikula
Oh,
was mana screwed. He was able to keep the goblins at bay for a while by dredging Dark Blast, but eventually, guess what happened, Alex?
I wonder if that Dark Blast dredged some lands into his graveyard. That was
Oh, that potential. But what
maybe.
happened next was the goblins player hardcast Patron of the Aki,
Oh,
the 5/5 beater. Pikula still only had one land at that point. He could not recover.
you said he hard cast it. Wow.
He hardcast it.
Wow.
So Deadguy Ale won game 2 without an engineered plague, but lost game 3 against goblins with an engineered plague in play. And that's how the tournament ended up. GP 2005, Philadelphia. Goblins at number 1. Rogue Deadguy Ale, a homebrew, at number 2. And now we know why these black-white decks that we used to just call black-white decks are called Deadguy Ale. We're learning something, Alex. We're not the only ones that didn't know this. I was thinking about doing an episode on this because I wanted to learn about it. And a couple weeks ago, I was just scrolling my Twitter feed, and then somebody, I don't even remember who, they posted, why are those black white decks called Deadguy Ale? And I'm like, perfect. We're not the only one that needs an answer to this question. So maybe there's other people out there. They'll see this episode and then they'll learn something from it. But that's the end of segment 1, titled Deadguy Ale, but why though? Alex, I'm ready to move on to segment 2, unless you have anything you want to say to wrap up the Deadguy Ale segment.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm stoked for segment 2.
Segment 2, I'm calling Don't Spec Tsabo's Web, Please and Thank You.
Oh, I thought we were on segment 3. Never mind.
Oh. You thought we were going to the commander corner already?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, we're not ready for the commander corner yet.
Not yet.
Segment 2 is called Don't Spec Tsabo's Web, Please and Thank You. I saw this post on MTG Finance the other day. Making sure nothing crazy is showing up here.
I saw that as well. I saw someone post that it was taken off.
Pride's Picks 2024 413. Tsabo's Web, Myth Unbound, Elementalist Palette, Extravagant Replication, Horn of Gondor, others. This Pride guy, apparently he's somebody who posts about his specs on MTG Finance. He said this: Tsabo's Web is drained from TCG due to its common inclusion in Premodern and increasingly legacy sideboards. Mostly Premodern, though, where it seems a ton of play. The card is a single print rare from Invasion, is commonly played as a 3 to 4 of, so I'm very high on this spec moving forward, especially for those of you on TCG Direct. High demand and low supply is always going to be a winning combo, and it doesn't get much better than this. And then you look over here on MTG stocks. In the past couple weeks, Tsabo's Web, straight up, it's going vertical.
Shaboom.
I should have picked some up because I was listening to an episode of the Spike Colony a couple weeks ago. I think it was just 2 weeks ago now. They were talking about Tsabo's Web and running it in certain decks because there are so many decks right now that are running rampant with man lands. Tsabo's Web, by the way, it's 2 colorless artifact. When Tsabo's Web comes into play, you draw a card, so it replaces itself. And lands with an activated ability that doesn't produce mana don't untap during their controller's untap phase. So any man land you activate doesn't untap. Your Rishodon ports don't untap. Other things probably. Barbarian rings don't untap. It also has this cool, weird art that reminds me of Quantum Leap for some reasons, for reasons I cannot explain.
Interesting.
But
I know we talked about this. I don't know which it was a long time ago, which episode we talked about this card. Because we were trying to figure out who all the people were on it, and we were talking about the art before. And I'm sure at that point when we talked about this, we were like, "There's only one printing of this. It's pretty good. I bet this is a good spec." Now, I mean, we said about a lot of cards probably, and we're wrong, but I feel like we probably noticed this card and we're like, "Hey, pay attention to this," right?
We both wanted to pick them up because they're obviously like a good sideboard card, but we never did because we haven't.
I didn't buy it either.
Yeah. I also remember us going like, I also remember us having a long conversation about who this might be, even though it's very definitely Tsabo, right?
I think that did happen. Yes.
We were like, this is Gerard. Have no idea who this is, but it's definitely Tsabo.
Hannah and Volrath, right?
Yeah. I think we were like, maybe this is Volrath.
No, I'm pretty sure I knew that guy was Volrath. Oh, no, maybe not. Who knows? I can't remember what I said months ago.
Wait, who's Volrath, Alex? This person.
That's Volrath.
This person right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But who knows what I said months ago? I could have been wrong.
Tsabo's Web. It's the last 2 weeks, it's gone vertical. And I look here on TCG Player. Mind you, this is an invasion card. The number of copies on a TCG Player in all conditions, 21. This isn't something that you see for just a run-of-the-mill, even though it's good, just a standard pre-modern card. 21. 6 light play copies, 2 near mint. I think this was even less.
That's insane.
Even less fewer than were posted yesterday. I have something to say about this. Something I want to say to the people on MTG Finance. Please refrain from buyouts and specs on pre-modern playables until Alex and I purchase our play sets. We don't want to accumulate large numbers of cards. Something like Tsabo's Web, this guy, Pride, said it's a 3 or 4 of. I don't think that I want to play 3 or 4 of. I think I want 2 probably for a sideboard, maybe 4. I would like to get a play set, but I would really like to have 2 at least. Please refrain from buyouts and specs on pre-modern playables until Alex and I purchase our play sets. You can check in with us by DMing me on Twitter, Threads, or Instagram at oldmagmtg. You can also send us an email at oldmenmagic@gmail.com. Let us know that you are considering a buyout of a pre-modern playable. I will let you know if we have our play sets. I won't even tell you to refrain for an extended periods of time. Just give me a heads up at least a week in advance. Tell me at least a week in advance so I could buy 4 copies. Alex can buy 4 copies.
And that helps you with your buyout person doing the buyout,
That is true. That's 4 fewer copies.
He's going to buy
8 fewer copies.
Yeah.
Yes, we are old men. Yes, we do play boomer magic, but some old men have limited budgets for collectible cardboard. Some men our age have young children. Some men our age,
got lawns to take care of.
Some men our age, have kids getting close to college, so they have to save up for college fund. Some men our age have been kicked in the dick by life, and maybe they've moved back into their parents' house to regroup and start again. I'm not saying we're those men, but some men are in situations like that. We don't have an unlimited funds. You know what I'm saying? We're not all rich boomers. But that's all. That's what I had to say about the Tsabo's Web buyout. Again, you can contact us, Twitter, Threads, or Instagram, or oldmanmagic@gmail.com. Let us know what you're planning on buying out so I can get my play sets. Pleasing and thank you. Alex, do you have anything to say about the Tsabo's Web buyout?
I think you covered it.
Okay. That was the end of segment 2. On to segment 3. This is the segment Alex was super psyched for. The Old Mage Commander Corner. We do different things sometimes in the Commander Corner. On occasion, rare occasion, we've gone over some articles about Commander. Some of the best cards from different sets that people playing Commander. We've learned a little bit about the rules of Commander. Alex and I are very new to Commander. What we usually do in the Commander Corner is we build a deck. We very slowly build a Commander deck. Last year, we built our first ever Commander decks. They were old frame Commander decks. 2024, we're building our second decks. Both of the decks, both years have been all old frame cards because that's mostly what Alex and I buy. My Commander for 2024 is a Tog. So I'm running a 5-color ATOG deck, not running all the ATOGs. There's only 13 ATOGs in Magic the Gathering. One of them is new frame, so that one's not even available to me if I want to keep it old frame. But in addition to that, some of the 13 ATOGs are just utter trash, so I'm just not running all of them. I'm running a Tog so far, original ATOG. Aratog, which is a damn fine Tog. Chronotog. Floratog, I might take this piece of shit out.
Damn fine Tog.
Lithatog, number 6. Phantatog, 7. Psychotog, 8. Sarcatog and Thaumatog. So I have 10 Togs so far. I don't know that 4 Tog is going to make it to the end. Might get removed. Some of the best Togs here eat enchantments. I noticed that. Some of my favorite Togs eat enchantments. The Phantatog eats enchantments. Sacrifice an enchantment, give it +1/+1. The Thaumatog eats enchantments, gets +1/+1. The best one, the Oratog, a damn fine Tog, gets +2/+2 for every enchantment you sacrifice to it. So I noticed that. And at the same time, when I was building this deck, I was like, I need a card draw engine of some sort. I thought, why not go heavy on the enchantments? Because I can also put some cards in here that allow me to draw cards every time I play enchantments or every time enchantments go to the graveyard. So this is a mix of an ATOG and an enchantment deck. It's an enchantment-heavy ATOG Enchantress deck. And right now, I only have 5 enchantments in this deck. Seal of Cleansing, which I'm just using for removal. Rancor. This comes back to my hand when it's sent to the graveyard from play. So this is one potential win con. Rancor paired with Oratog. You can make a really big Oratog. Play Rancor multiple times for as many force as you have. And trample over your opponent for some big damage. I have Enchantress as Presence, which is an enchantment that allows me to draw a card every time I play an enchantment spell. So it's giving me more card draw. Cover of Darkness, which gives creatures of a chosen type fear. You're damn right I'm going to choose ATOGs. Nobody else is going to have ATOGs. So my creatures are going to have fear. Other people's creatures are not going to have fear. And I put an Animate Dead in here because ATOG is 5-color commander. I'm running 5-color good stuff. I like Animate Dead. I think it just comes in handy, or it should come in handy, in my mind, in a commander game, because there's always going to be something cool in somebody's graveyard that might just want to snag. You know, one of the things with an ATOG deck is I'm running a lot of small creatures. They can get big, but I can't continuously make them big because I would just eat up my whole board. So one of the things I'm afraid of is potentially facing like a big beast that my opponent plays. And I want to have some way to like clone it, for instance. So at least I have something there to block their beast if they come my way. or, to steal it. Animate dead. I got to kill it first, but then I can steal it. But anyways, only 5 enchantments so far. I need to add more enchantments to this deck if I really want to get an enchantment card draw engine, and if I really want to have a lot of enchantments to feed to my Phantatog, my Thaumatog, and my Oratog. So I have a list of 4 new enchantments I want to add today. First one I'm going to add is Sterling Grove. I just felt like maybe I should give this one a try. It seemed like a perfectly good enchantment to put in a deck that's full of enchantments. Sterling Grove was originally printed in Invasion, I believe. I have an Invasion printing. And it's 1 green, 1 white. All other enchantments you control can't be the target of spells or abilities. So it's going to protect my most important enchantments. Also, you can pay 1 colorless and sacrifice Sterling Grove to search your library for an enchantment card and reveal that card. Shuffle your library, then put the card on top of it. So it is also an enchantment tutor. It can help me get a particular enchantment that might be really important for me at a certain time in the game. So I've added Sterling Grove. I'm also adding Fertile Ground. I got to add some more cards to make my mana base a little bit more consistent. I'm struggling even with the dual lands. Consistently playing cards on curve with this 5-color deck, it's hard. Fertile Ground is one card that makes that a little bit easier. It's 1 colorless, 1 green. Enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color.
Okay.
For Mirza's Saga. I'm going to add Copy Artifact because I just feel like this would be good in Commander. There's going to be an artifact that I will want to copy somewhere on the game, somewhere on the board at some point in the game.
Sometimes it might suck because it'll be like redundant, like it'll be an artifact that has a global effect that you won't really need to copy, but like overall, like it's such a cool card. Like I'd put it in just for fun.
I'm running it. I'm going to be cloning creatures. I'm going to be copying artifacts.
Yeah.
And then this one I was really excited about when I found this. I think you will like this. It's right up your alley. And I think it's really good in an ATOG deck. Unnatural Selection. Because you'll notice what I said, I had 10 creatures or 10 ATOGs, but I have more than 10 creatures up here. Not all my creatures so far are ATOGs. And I'm probably going to add some other creatures in here that aren't ATOGs. Unnatural Selection is an enchantment that I can play for 1 colorless, 1 blue. It's a rare from Apocalypse. Pay 1 colorless, choose a creature type other than wall. Target creature's type becomes that type until end of turn. So I can play a creature that's not an ATOG. I can use Unnatural Selection to change it to an ATOG at some point, and then I can feed it to my ATOG. Alec, you look like you're smiling.
We've talked about it.
Am I wrong about something? Or
no, I just feel like I've mentioned it before.
Okay, yeah. I was like, hold on, am I reading the card incorrectly? Does it
No.
not gonna work?
Actually, the one I talked about more than this was a different card, Artificial Evolution. So
is that
they have
also
similar names? But I think we mentioned this maybe at one point. But yes, I agree. This is a cool idea.
Is Artificial Evolution also a enchantment? Because maybe I want to play that too. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
What are you, Artificial Evolution? It didn't show up in the enchantments.
Damn.
It's an instant.
Oh, okay.
Change the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of 1 creature type with another. The new creature type can't be legend or wall. Change the text of target spell. I could always unnatural my selection. Sorry. I could always unnatural selection my ATOG to say sacrifice an enchantress. ATOG gets +X until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed enchantress's power.
Yeah.
I could do stuff like that. Okay, maybe.
Well, you could make one of your just creature type. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't
That's
know.
great.
But anyways, back to your card that you added. You added unnatural selection.
Okay, that's it. I added unnatural selection. Those are the four. I added four enchantments today. I still got to add some more enchantments. I'm not
Was
sure how
that
many I
four
have.
already? Wow, that's cool.
Yep, Sterling Grove, copy artifact, fertile ground, unnatural selection. They'll play different rules. Sterling Grove is protective and allows me to tutor for an important
Hmm.
enchantment that I might want. I might, somebody might pay a killer artifact, and I'm like, I need that artifact. Sack the Sterling Grove, tutor for the copy artifact.
True. Yeah.
Fertile ground helps with my mana fixing. Unnatural selection can help me make my Atagatog even bigger for one huge attack than
Yeah.
people are expecting.
Sterling Grove will be great for, yeah, getting your cover of darkness. That'll be good.
That's going to be my main. I think that's going to be my main target for the Sterling Grove and the Enlightened Tutor. When I'm thinking about what I want to tutor for, why I'm going to put these tutors in.
Hmm. Maybe
It
if it's
seems
really
like,
early in the game, get the Enchantress's presence, and then
yeah,
like, as you're building, and then switch to the cover of darkness.
yeah, it's gonna. That's what I've been thinking about. Sometimes card draw, but if I have a board state, then I know I can just like go for one huge attack with the cover of darkness might be my target
Yeah.
that I get right before I go in for the
And then
kill.
if you see an awesome creature go into a graveyard, then you can grab your animate dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So okay, that's a Togatog for the day. Alex, you have a deck too that you're building this year.
I do have a deck.
I hear your commander is also an old frame commander.
Who would have guessed?
I also heard that instead of running five colors like you did last year and I'm running this year, you chose a monocolor deck, which is much easier to build, I think.
I'm going the opposite direction, just doing a greeny deck. I have a Druid deck, Satan's Power, with
Seaton.
Satan Croson Protector, who allows my druids to tap for mana and become Manimal Druids. I'm using mini druids and mana creatures. I'm going to use some big creatures that I can tutor out or pull into play. I'm going to have a pretty decent mana base, so I think we'll be able to cast stuff. I'm going to have a few creatures that grow. And I'm also doing an enchantment-y thing, which I did in my last commander deck, and you're doing in yours, which we did not plan. I'm sorry if this is boring and redundant for our listeners,
It
but
just happened. Sometimes more than
it
one
just
people play
happens.
Enchantress.
I've been fascinated with the Enchantress idea and the number of new awesome enchantments that I've discovered since we came back into playing. So I want to mess with it and use it. Um, I'm trying to have a few cards that get stuff out of my graveyard or shuffle things back in so that I can, uh, use some blockers and bring them back, or use a few special cards and then bring them back again if I need to. Um, I don't know what else I want to say today before I add my cards, but last week I said I was going to add some creatures.
Oh, okay.
So today I'm going to add four big creatures. Creature number one. Are you ready, Steve?
Hold on.
Oh,
Okay, now I'm ready.
okay.
Hold on a
Creature
second.
number one.
Wait, hold
What?
on. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready again.
Creature number one. Verdant Force.
Bird and Force.
Verdant Force.
I was considering saying, hold on, I have to use the restroom because I do have to use the restroom, but I think I can make it through the commander corner.
You can go if you want.
No. Wait, hold on. I think I'll go.
Go ahead.
Wait, no, hold on. Verdant Force. Tempest. Verdant Force.
This is an oldie but a goodie.
Tempest printing.
As soon as this came out back in the day and we discovered it, I was like, oh, I gotta figure out a way to put this into a deck and get all these 1/1 tokens, not just every turn on my turn, but on every other person's turn. So in a commander game. just pumping out the tokens.
Even better.
And I'm going to use natural order and some of those other type of cards to pull this into play, hopefully.
Classic illustration by Dieter Lisi.
And this one, this might be, I'm not sure yet. I have to try playing it, but it might not be the strongest of my big creatures. So maybe we'll end up taking Verdant Force out. It's kind of like on the margin slot at the moment.
I have it in my 2003 commander deck called the Pump. Verdant Force.
Okay.
Verdant Force.
I didn't remember that you had that in there, but
Yep.
definitely fits. All right. Next guy. Sylvos, Rogue Elemental.
Does it have trample?
I think it might be SIL. Oh, it sure has trample.
Sylvos. Here we go.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before. I know I've mentioned it to you off air. This guy's a beast though, man. 3 colorless, 3 green, elemental legend, 8/5 trample, and it has 1 green regenerate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this will be a consistent threat. I feel like I can get it out and keep it out, keep it alive, trample with it. I need some tramplers,
I love
seems like a good
trample.
idea to me.
I do like this card. I was looking at this card not that long ago, since I've been trying to figure out what kind of deck I want to build in black and green. I know that I wanted to have 4 Veteran Explorer and 4 Cabal Therapy. And I wanted to build a natural order focused deck. The idea is to get out big creatures. Either through natural order or just all the ramp that's going to be provided in the deck by cards like the Veteran Explorer and maybe some other ramp cards that I'm going to play. So if you don't have the natural order, you can still fairly reliably cast something like this 6/6 Elemental Legend. I've been considering this guy. I don't see him a lot. But I liked him in the deck. I was thinking about more than Verdant Force. I like the trample.
Yeah.
Big trample guy.
Mm-hmm. And easier to hard cast. 6 isn't insane in a mono green
It's
deck.
not. It's not. Yeah.
That's fine. So yeah, I've been looking at this for a few different decks since I discovered it, but I want to try it in here. I think it'll work. All right, 2 more. Weatherseed Treefolk.
Loyal listeners of the podcast are familiar with Weatherseed Treefolk from an early episode of the Old Mage MTG podcast we did when it was still called the Old Men Magic podcast, where we explored card advantage in green. We read an old article written by, I think, Benny Smith. Weatherseed Treefolk was featured in that episode. That was the first time I learned about Weatherseed Treefolk. Okay.
Weatherseed Treefolk. Oh. Weatherseed Treefolk is 2 colorless, 3 green, 5/3 trample. When it's put into a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this. It'll give me, something consistent to keep coming back, keep some pressure on. Should be easy to keep casting if I need to,
Something to do. And yeah, in this deck in particular, this is not going to be hard for you to repeatedly cast if you
Yeah.
have the
So
opportunity.
I have a disposable blocker, maybe a
Mhm.
disposable offensive guy that I can keep sending with the trample. Yeah, I like it.
I like it
Art's
too.
pretty neat on this card too.
I like it too.
Mhm.
I'm strongly considering building a new frame deck next year. And I'm strongly considering making that deck a Treefolk deck.
Oh, okay.
Weatherseed Treefolk could still go in it, even though it's old frame. When I say new frame, it doesn't mean new frame only. Just be a deck where I would buy some new frame cards for.
I see.
Lorwyn opens up the Treefolk possibilities. And from what I've seen of Lorwyn, I dig it. So
Yeah, it looks like a pretty cool set. All right, last card. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Namata Grove Guardian.
Does it start with a P?
No, an N. What? Did you make a joke that went over my head? NEMA.
No, I just couldn't remember what the card was, and now I remember it. But
Oh.
sometimes things that are pronounced with an N actually start with a P,
Oh,
like
like
pneumonia.
pneumatic.
Yeah. No,
Pneumatic
like
Grove Guardian. All right.
no, like pneumonia.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Mata Grove Guardian. This is a cool card. This is a really cool card.
Legendary creature Tree Folk. It's 2 green, 4 colorless, 4/5. Has 2 abilities. You can pay 2 colorless and 1 green to put a 1/1 Saproling into play, and you can sacrifice Saproling to give all Saprolings +1/+1 until end of turn. So again, I'm kind of thinking of this as like a mana sink. If I have
Mhm.
druids, I can tap for mana and mana moles and a bunch of forests. Maybe I'll have some extra mana laying around to do something with.
Which is
Uh,
good for this deck. I mean, this is what your commander does. It generates a shit ton of mana.
yeah, yeah,
So
and I want to make sure I have some outlets for that or something
something
to
to
pump
feed
that
it
into.
into. Don't let
Um,
it go to waste. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a
So there we go. That's my
very,
pick. Those are
very
my
strong
picks for
mana seed.
today. I have a few big creatures now that I can pull out and do some stuff later game with.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Coming along. How many cards are in this deck? Didn't we find out that we could scroll to the bottom here somewhere and see the number of cards?
I think so. Way at the bottom. You might have to pull
Way
the
at the
mouse
bottom.
out to do it, or just go all the way. I don't
73 main deck.
know. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Current price of your deck so far, $295.86. Mine's way more than that because of the damn dual lands these
I think
days.
overall this deck is gonna be pretty cheap to build. The
Yeah,
Argonian Enchantress, I think, is just about my, you know, most expensive and maybe my only expensive card.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
that's good.
I have a Dark Maze of Ith in here. I already have that,
You already have natural orders. You already have Felon's Cane, Sword,
yeah.
and a lot of the cards probably.
Yeah, I have my Sylvans, I have natural orders. I mean, I only need one of these, I guess. And Feldon's Cane, I have a, white border one.
I forgot that that was even reprinted. Do you remember what set? Guess I could find that out.
It's probably Chronicles, but it might be fourth or fifth.
Felon's Cane, fifth edition, then the gold borders, and Chronicles.
Chronicles and fifth edition. Okay.
Fifth edition and Chronicles. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the Old Mage MTG Commander Corner. That brings us to the end of episode 85 today also. I hope you guys enjoyed. I enjoyed learning all about the history of Deadguy Ale. I got to get into some more. I don't know if next week we're going to talk more Deadguy Ale. I want to go to old school Deadguy Ale to see what people did with Deadguy Ale before it was called Deadguy Ale. And I want to get more into pre-modern Deadguy Ale to see what people are brewing in the Deadguy Ale space, not with modern cards, but with the pre-modern cards in today's pre-modern meta.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about squirrels too, so maybe next week we'll talk about squirrels, Alex. I'm not sure. Now might be a good time to establish squirrel positions, you know? Maybe we'll see that. Maybe I'll see that post on MTG Finance like next week in Pride's picks. Maybe it'll be Deranged Hermit and some other squirrels.
Mhm.
I wanted to pick up some Deranged Hermits because they're going back to what are they going back to? Are they going back? They're going back to Lorwyn, right? This is why actually I'm thinking, should I pick up Lorwyn cards now that I want to get? But I don't want to buy new border cards yet. But they're going back to Lorwyn. I think there's lots of no Bloomborough. That's what it is. All the
Oh,
critters.
I see what you mean now.
People
Yeah.
are already talking about scroll cards, old scroll
Yes.
cards, reserve list scroll cards because of Bloomborough and all the critters
Seems
in
like a
Bloomborough.
no-brainer to me.
And I wanted to pick up another Deranged Hermit. They've already started. They've already started moving up quite a bit. I haven't got one. I don't think I'm going to get one for quite a while.
Dang.
But anyways, so next week maybe some more Dead Guy, maybe squirrels. See you then.
Thank you.
I ain't gonna do this anymore. That's all for me. Goodbye.